lineouts, rucks,
engage! What an amazing try!
tries, and tackles, dissected by South Africa's top rugby minds.
That is world class!
This is To The Last Drop, your weekly in-depth rugby podcast with Liam Delcom and Brendan Nell.
This is To The Last Drop. I'm Brendan Nell.
I'm Liam Delcom.
And we're back. It's two epic tests against the All Blacks, 2 Springbok victories, 4 in a row, 6 out of the last 8. Everything's going right for Springbok rugby at the moment.
Yeah, I think they're in a very good space. And I suppose almost the opposite view is being expressed in New Zealand of All Blacks rugby. Although I think some of it is probably a little bit hysterical. I don't think their team was anywhere near as poor as some of the pundits make them out to be. But from a South African perspective, I think the 2 tests showed again the depth available to Rassie Erasmus. We saw it again last Saturday with the starting team. There were a couple of outstanding performers in that starting team, and then from the 45th minute onwards, once Malcolm Marx made his way onto that field, how the bench again made a massive impact.
Yeah, the bench did. And I think the trademark of both tests was the fact that the Springboks didn't play well, probably for 60-odd minutes. They won the collisions in the first test, but were highly inaccurate, made a lot of mistakes. In this test, they were beaten quite badly at the breakdown. The All Blacks won, I think, 5 or 6 penalties at the breakdown at crucial times, and could easily have won that game. And you're right, it was as the bench came on, things sort of turned around, and they sort of got on top. And then in both games, a yellow card to a tight head prop at the exact same time. It was quite strange. But at the end of the day, if you're New Zealand, you push the world champions that close, and let's be honest, any of those games could have gone differently. And we would be having a very different talk this morning. So I don't think New Zealand are in a bad spot. I think you tend to get blinded by the lights a bit, where you think 3 out of 4 losses in the Rugby Championship. But they certainly are a different kettle of fish to Ireland, and they certainly are a step up for the Springboks from playing Ireland.
Well, yeah, with Ireland, it is a little different in that they come up with all kinds of cunning plans, and they've got players that take you to the brink and into dark places. Whereas with the All Blacks, their skill level is just so high that they always pose questions of you. As much as we talk about the Springbok bench, I think we should also just make the point that that bench can only make that kind of impact if the guys who started gave them some kind of foundation. And of course, Peter Steph, the Dway, Ebenet's a bit. Cheslin Colby, I thought, was outstanding in that test. All those guys delivered, and it basically allowed the bench to come on and bring the same, if not more, intensity. And if you do that across 80 minutes, most teams will buckle.
Yeah, no, exactly. You talk about Cheslin Colby and Sia's try, Siya Kolisi's try. By the way, what a performance from Siya Kolisi.
As well, yes, absolutely.
Playing with a broken nose through a pain barrier and put in probably one of his best performances ever in the Springbok jersey. In his try, if you look at the replays of that, you see Cheslin throwing in the ball, then hitting the ruck, and then coming up as a halfback at the same time. So he almost did everything that he needed to do, that everybody else needed to do in that try. But yeah, we're certainly blessed with some exceptional players at the moment that are playing for the Springboks, and it shows in the results. And the Boks have now got one hand and probably a couple of fingers around the Rugby Championship trophy. They head to Argentina now. A tough one because Argentina obliterated Australia, although you sort of wonder how much that was Argentina being good as opposed to Australia just being terrible.
I think it's probably a little bit of both. Just getting back to the Bok test just one last time, it's also significant, the Boks recording a 6th win in 8 test matches against the All Blacks. That's never been done against the All Blacks. No other opponent has won so many tests across that sort of span. So very much new territory. That's put them firmly on the back foot. They probably have to salvage something out of this, not just the Rugby Championship, but will have to prove something in the Bledisloe Cup. Because if they slip up there, then as much as we making the point that the All Blacks aren't necessarily in the dark space that a lot of their pundits make them out to be, if they lose to the Wallabies, and we've seen it's not the best Wallaby side, some serious questions will be asked of Scott Robertson, which has already happened.
Yeah, it has already started. And not only that, if they do lose to the Wallabies, their next 3 outings are against England, Ireland, and France on the end of the year tour, which are by no means any for any team. And you could easily see a team losing 1 or 2 of those games, even if they do.
Yeah.
That's Scott Robertson's challenge. And, he's feeling the pressure. He's obviously not the same Crusaders coach where you get a full preseason with your team and months to hone in a game plan. He's feeling that pressure at the moment, and he was put under some pressure at the press conference there. I think it's worth playing his answer. He gave a pretty much, close calls, inches in the game, that sort of answer. And then the season broadcaster and friend of ours, Martin Gillingham, sort of pressed him on it. So let's have a listen quickly to that exchange. And you can see that if that's the questions coming from this side of the world, he's going to have a lot more to answer for on that side.
Scott, you're taking a very philosophical approach, but the reality is that there are not many living New Zealanders who can remember losing 4 straight matches to the Springboks. Do you expect the public back at home to share your philosophical approach?
I'm philosophical, but I'm real.
I'm not asking about you, I'm asking about what your perception
They'll be real
of those back at home.
Well, like I mentioned at the start, our duty demand that we win those games. I said that at the first question, to be honest with you, and it's not very philosophical. We care deeply about this jersey, and we've got to win those.
Is it going to be a tough journey to go home and face up to those people?
Yeah, it is. Yep, but like I said, we'll be frank and honest around it. That's the way you do and approach these things, and you just step forward to it.
A fair enough question if you've travelled, especially to the UK, where the writers there tend to drill in very quickly if there's a bit of a fracture. They get to the point. And I think Robertson was taken a little bit aback by that. And to be fair to him, I mean, the build-up to that question, he said all the things that a coach would say that just lost the test and was fairly close.
Yeah, he did. He gave all the answers about how being in a game of inches. And as I said, you could easily understand the coach getting away with that, and it was quite interesting that he was quizzed on that. He's got a lot of pressure on him, and I think the pressure is only going to go. Luckily for him, I think it's the Wallabies. They're now 9th again in the world. They are seriously at a low at the moment, and you got to sort of wonder if that's. I know we like hitting on them a bit, but you got to sort of wonder if that's.
Sorry. Can I interrupt you? There's just a sound coming from next door, so we need to pause. I think the plumbing. Don't know if you could hear it.
I couldn't hear it, so it's fine.
Oh, okay. So then we go on. Sorry.
Okay, so I'll start again.
To my ear, it was like, sorry.
Plumbing problems. I think the best thing for Scott Robertson at the moment is that he's got the Wallabies next in that Bledisloe, and they're now 9th in the world again, and they're really at a low. And you got to wonder if that's not just. We love bagging on the Wallabies a bit because of all the nonsense they spoke about South African Super Rugby over the years. But you got to wonder if that's not the result of the last 20 years of looking for quick fixes, firing some decent coaches like Robbie Deans and Dave Rennie, those type of guys. Not to mention a good coach like Michael Checker, who sometimes caused a little bit more problems than good there, but certainly a very interesting coach to deal with. And of course, then there's the Eddie Jones experiment, which was a horrible failure as well. You sort of wonder to yourself, is this the start of the end of the rugby championship? I know I'm jumping here a bit, but you got to wonder for yourself with the tours coming now. First of all, those All Black test gave us this wonderful thought of a 7 or 8 match tour of the All Blacks, which I think everybody's looking forward to. Just the excitement across these last couple of weeks was something totally you haven't experienced for a while. And now that that's in the offing, Argentina are there and thereabouts, but they hit and miss a lot of the times. Australia just woeful at the moment. So, what do you think? Do you think there is a future for the Rugby Championship?
I hope there is. If you listen to some of the administrators, when South Africa played New Zealand in that first series in 2026, New Zealand was the country that agitated for the Rugby Championship not to take place. South Africa is more in favor of a single round, so there had to be a truncated championship. The more obviously they engage in those tours, the more pressure there will be on, on the fixture list. So you're going to have a situation where I think 2028 as well, there might not be a rugby championship. So by not having it in some years means that people are going to start asking the question, what is the point of all of this? If it's not an annual event, what is it? So in that sense, I think the product that they're trying to put out there is being diluted. They will have to come up with some solutions, because if you cut Australia and Argentina adrift, that's not good for world rugby. I know that people will say, well, that's their own problem. They just do their own thing. You still want to get to a World Cup, a tournament that matters, where you probably have 5 or 6, maybe more teams that have a chance of winning the thing. Because otherwise, why have the thing? Why have the sort of supposed global interest in it? So you want teams to be competitive, but as things are shaping at the moment, if you follow the currents as they go now, it's very difficult to see a long and bright future for the Rugby Championship, because I think the test series between South Africa and the All Blacks is very much going to be center stage. I know the All Blacks and the Wallabies will still have their Bledisloe Cup, but I mean, that wouldn't compare. Not for us, certainly.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, I just already think, and I've got quite strong views on part of this. You've already got the Lions Tour that sort of overshadows World Rugby every 4 years. You've got a World Cup that overshadows it. If the Springbok All Blacks Test Series is going to do the same, you sort of wonder what's the value of a rugby championship. Now, I also, we've got friends in Argentina. We love some of the rugby that Argentina plays. They've got some real good players that come through. So it's hard on them, and they're also in a part of the world that it's very difficult to sort of get competition that's not across a continent. But I think the one thing that gets me about this whole thing is that in COVID, World Rugby propped up Rugby Australia to the tunes of millions and millions of dollars, in a loan. They had the Lions Tour in Australia very cheekily, if you remember right, offered to host our Lions Tour during COVID because they said we wouldn't be able to host it. They get given a World Cup as well. And on top of it, there's been reports of $100 million Aussie dollar TV deal that Australian rugby will be able to keep the bulk of and not go to World Rugby as we normally goes to. So it's almost like everyone's bending over backwards for Australia. And you've got to wonder at what point do they need to sort of fend for themselves? And all this money that's being spent on Australia, you sort of wonder if that was spent on nations like Georgia and Portugal and Fiji and Japan and those sort of nations, wouldn't World Rugby be in a better space anyway? And but I do get the thing that the lesson of cricket is a very stark one for us, of how cricket sort of sold its soul to 3 nations, and basically Test cricket is dead now.
Well, Brendan, that's a point very well made, but it's also premised on whether that sport has a soul.
That's very true. Can't argue there. But okay, let's leave it there. Let's go straight to the Springbok squad was named for the game in Argentina. Box, basically, if they win that game, they wrap up the rugby championship. If they get 2 bonus points, they probably wrap up the rugby championship as well. So, yeah, depending on points difference. But 7 players being left behind. We're talking about the likes of Frans Malherbe, Bongi Mudnambi, Peter Steph Dutoy, Sasha Feinberg Mngomezulu, Damian de Allende, Willie Leroux, and Cheslin Colby. That's quite a bulk. They'll probably be in the Nelspruit game. But a very interesting team, Liam. What did you make of it?
Predictable up to a point. I would have thought they might take Willie Leroux to nudge him closer to the 100 mark. Because people are asking questions about Willie Leroux. I mean, he didn't have a great game in Cape Town, but they are going to get him to 100 games. I think it's important that they put game time into the players at hooker and at tight head that are sort of in the case of hooker, for instance. I mean, behind Bongi and Malcolm Marx, a big investment needs to be made in our 3rd and 4th choice in terms of game time. Johan Grobler gets another crack here, so we can expect him to see some proper test action over the next year or so. Certainly, end of year will be another option for him. And then in terms of tight head, of course, I mean, France is very much our go-to tight head, and we've got some decent backup, but the decent backup probably needs more game time. So yeah, that's not too many other. If you look at the rest of it, I mean, not too many surprises. Sasha's played every test. I mean, whether off the bench or as a starter, so his workload's been high. But he's a young man; he can probably handle it. And then, of course, Peter Steph has just been a machine, as he usually is. The only, I wouldn't say surprise, you can understand why they're taking him, but if they were in a better position in terms of their stocks at lock and people who are fit, then even Etzebeth probably would have had a break as well. But given the paucity in that situation, in that position, he gets to travel as well.
Yeah, and we'll probably chat a bit more about it next week, because by that time we'll see the team at next week's podcast. But yeah, I mean, Vincent Koch, Oxenchair, probably on the bench. Gerard Steenekamp, I would expect him to probably play. Thomas de Toy, if you're being serious about it. The only thing though is the question I suppose would be is how serious are they about wrapping up the championship, because that comes into play in several spots, and I think there's a caveat to this, because the Boks have shown that they trust players, and they trust the younger players as well, or the more inexperienced players. So if you stick with your plan, then you would say somebody like Gerard Steenekamp should get a start in Argentina, and Thomas de Toy should be the tight end, Johan Grobler should be the hooker. But and then you have those other guys on the bench. Same with Salman Marat and Eben Etzebeth. If you're going to stick to that, you play Salman and bring Eben off the bench, which I think probably could work quite well. Ben Jason Dixon would be the Peter Steph replacement. There's a question at 8, Elrich or Jasper Visser. I think that's a debate that's going to be quite interesting as well. Nines, you can pick any of those 9s to play. I don't think there's anything you lose there. Again, it comes into, if you want to win the test, do you start with Andre or do you play Mani? Now, my only concern with Mani is he just hasn't had a lot of game time of late. But he certainly is a great attacking force, and in that Bok team, he can really excel. But if you're looking to close out the game, close out the rugby championship, do you go for Andre straight away? Centers pick themselves. I think the back three is going to be quite interesting, because it looks like it's going to be a Apalele Fassi, probably Kurtley and Makazole Mapimpi. I think Kanan Moody will probably be on the bench to sort of cover those positions as well. But yeah, it's certainly not a bad team at all. But yeah, just some questions about, do you go hammer and tongs, or do you trust the youngsters and put the rest of the guys on the bench?
I think this is probably the ideal opportunity to trust the system. In other words, you've invested in these players, and now show that you obviously trust them. Play them. The big carrot, of course, is if it comes off, if the Boks win, they win the rugby championship, and the cherry on top would be in a match. Obviously, you've played several young players, and then the Nelspruit game just becomes this massive celebration of having achieved the first rugby championship success since 2019. If they fall short in Santiago, then there's obviously a lot more focus on the Nelspruit game. Boks go on and win that, you know what? Another big celebration either way. So it's, they've got options. They're in this wonderful position where they can make these decisions. They have these options. I would go for the former. I would go with the youngsters. Put game time into them as quickly as you can, and then come back, win or lose, come back to Nelspruit and celebrate.
And I think they've shown that before. In Perth, they did that and it worked for them. So there's no reason not to trust the system. It's worked well, and it brings a certain confidence to those young players as well. So, yeah, but we'll see. By next week, we'll know the team. Hopefully, we'll have a better insight to that. But it's going to be a very interesting test. Just before we go to quick interviews, snippets we want to bring you as well. The first being Damian de Allende. Liam had a little bit of a chat along with some other journos with him, and here's a brief snippet of what they chatted about. Obviously, Dukes is one of the best Springbok midfielders and could easily claim to be the best midfielder in world rugby at the moment, probably with the way he's playing, especially the way he played in Cape Town. Have a listen.
You've obviously played a lot of Test rugby and a lot of games against them. Is this as good a time in the Springbok jersey playing them?
Yeah, it's always a good time. It's always good fun. Like I said, it's you always want to test yourself against the best players in the world, and they've always been up there. I know, like I said, now at the moment they're not as consistent as what they probably want to be, but they probably got at least between maybe 3 to 5 players that could be close to the best players in the world in their position, in my opinion. So for me it's always a good time to play against them, no matter if they are going through a bad patch or if they are going to a good patch.
I was actually thinking more of the Springboks being in a good space.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think for us, I think we're in a very good space. Rassie has helped us a lot, and we've come a long way with him and the coaching staff. Obviously we've got Tony Brown and Jerry there now as well, which is incredible. And the way we develop our game, it's very exciting. We're moving in the right direction. And for me, at 32 years old, I'm learning a lot more, especially in international rugby as well, in the way that Jerry thinks and the way that Tony thinks as well. So it's nice at my age now to still learn and get better. And within saying that, I'm still going to make a few mistakes like I did over the past weekend, but as long as I know that us as a squad are getting better and we're moving in the right direction, and us as individuals, we're also getting better as well.
Tony called you the best passer in the Springbok team. Does that put pressure on you?
No, it doesn't. No, not at all. We obviously work on our passing quite a lot. I've worked on my passing throughout my whole career. Obviously now I get to use it a lot more than what I have done in the past. So,
which must be fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun, and that's why I say we us as a Springbok group and coaches and everything, we're moving in the right direction. And we need to be like challenging and testing the boundaries and being more dynamic than every other team. So we are working towards that, and it will take time. We will make a few mistakes along the way, but hopefully by the time we get to where we want to get, then we'll all be flourishing and in a very good space. So.
Being in the Bok squad, or let's put it this way, the Bok environment has been quite dynamic in that just when you think you kind of figure things out, like there's a pattern developing, Rassie tends to sort of mix things up, and we see it often in selection. There's not like a go-to 50 necessarily. He chops and changes. How does that, I mean, and you're obviously an experienced player, how do you adjust to that? Because obviously it requires a bit of a mind shift as well, because in your mind you may be like, I'm the best inside centre there is.
Like for me it's tough after the first Australian test. Obviously found out I wasn't playing, so for me it's quite tough at my age. Like I flippant disappointed still because I always want to play. But I also understand the mindset of Rassie of we need to broaden our squad, and we need to get more guys involved, and we need to think outside the box and be more dynamic, and we must need to be one step ahead of everyone else. So I understand it, and I think everyone else understands it as well. It's very easy just to sit there and be upset and be grumpy the whole week, but yeah, I don't think any player in the squad is like that, and I think that's why we work so well. Everyone puts the egos aside. It is disappointing not to play, but you know that at the end of the day, if we all buy into the plan that Rassie and the coaches want, which is sometimes you'll play, sometimes you won't, we'll all be able to be successful together. And I understand it. I know all the other players understand that, and that's the most important thing for us.
Is the game a lot more physical than when you started playing for the Springboks? I'm not talking about recovery because the body gets older, but I'm talking about the physicality you experience in the game.
I think so, yes. And I mean that, like, I don't mean that in any disrespect to the older guys. When I started playing in 2014 and 2015, I think guys are a lot more conditioned nowadays. A lot more guys gym. I know a lot of guys when I started playing didn't gym. And you know, just the dynamic of the game has changed quite a bit as well. I think there's a lot more ball in play maybe than what there used to be. But yeah, I think guys are a lot more conditioned. Guys are in peak condition. They're a lot stronger. Guys are trying to get stronger every season. They're trying to squat more. They're trying to bench more. They're trying to get stronger, and that leads to bigger conditions in the game. So I think for me personally, yes, it has gotten more physical.
How long did it take you to sort of figure out the do's and the don'ts at the onslaught?
Pretty quickly, I think, because I was there obviously in 2015, and I'm always quite aware and respectful of other people's cultures. So I try and buy into it quite quickly so that there's no drama in between. Obviously I was there in 2015, and then obviously we played Japan in Kumagaya before the World Cup in 2019, and then we got a proper taste of the onsen and how it should be. And then obviously guys like Willie had been there before, and he had been there for a couple of seasons, I think, at Honda. So he also helped us quite a bit. So we actually got into that routine quite easily. And to go to the local onsen where I stay in Kumagaya, it's incredible. There are a few people that might know rugby, but probably 95% of them don't. So I'd actually sit there in the sauna and actually do some nice peace out time and get some nice recovery out of it.
Be left alone.
Yeah. I love it in Japan. I actually just re-signed for 3 more years.
Okay.
I was considering coming back, but yeah, if I'm still fit and strong and developing my game, and I'm ready to get selected for the next World Cup, when that time comes, then I will probably have to look for another club, and there's only one club I'll really come to, and it will be back in Cape Town, and hopefully we can arrange something around that when that time comes, if I'm still up for playing.
And then finally, another player we caught up with as part of a couple of, a week or two ago, as part of the Bulls Awards there, we got hold of Cameron Hanekom, who's obviously a player that everybody's watching them, and everybody expects to have another big season in the UFC. So he's going to be back, he's fit, and he sort of, I did put the question to him about Wales Warren Gatland wanting to recruit him, and he just laughed it off, and he said he never even knew that was a thing. He said he knows he's got a Welsh grandmother or something like that. But he said,
it sounds like a good prank to pull on a player. You just name a random country. You know what?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's some strange ones out there. Carl Brink, for instance, qualifies for Portugal. He's got a Portuguese passport. So, there's some strange backgrounds to some players, and of course, that's quite a grey, murky area about whether your grandparents or somebody's friend's dog's cousin, once belonged somewhere. But he's very much firmly entrenched as a Springbok. So have a listen quickly to him and his thoughts on the coming season. Start with that one, Cameron. You had a great season. Everything was going well, and then at the wrong time, you got this hamstring injury, probably at the worst time for you.
Yeah, no, I must say it's obviously after the loss and everything, it's a bitter pill to swallow. But yeah, I mean, I was a bit down in the dumps afterwards, but I just had to make that mental shift and like pick myself up afterwards. I mean, that's also how the game goes at the end of the day.
I mean, you must. Obviously, people have seen you, and your big thing for you is now just to get back. How's your fitness now? Are you back up and running? Everything fine?
Yeah, no, I've been now back for like 3 weeks, so I've been fully training with the URC squad and all of that. So yeah, I'm just waiting to get my opportunity to get back onto the field at the moment.
They also say that the first season's the easiest. The second season, everyone works you out. Have you taken that? Have you had to change anything? Have you worked on anything in that?
I've definitely been harder on myself than last season. I mean, obviously it was a dream that came true to be able to play in the first URC season now. But obviously the hard work starts now, and I'm not done yet. So just want to be able to step it up another level.
When you burst on the scene, there was obviously a lot of talk overseas, but everybody Welsh suddenly wanted to claim you. Just your thoughts on that? And I mean, you obviously contracted to the Bulls till 2027.
Yeah, my only thing was, firstly, I didn't even know about it, to be honest. Yeah, my grandmother comes from Wales, so didn't know that the connection would like explode how it did. But yeah, my dream's always been to become a Springbok one day, and it's still my dream. So yeah, that's where my focus is at the moment. I must say it was a massive privilege to be able to be a part of the lineman camps. Yeah, it's every boy's dream to become a Springbok one day. It's still my dream to become a Springbok. I know the hard work there's still a lot of hard work that needs to be put in at the moment. So I'm just trying to keep my mind focused on the right things at the moment. Just getting better and better as a player and as a person every day.
Interesting guy, and he doesn't talk a lot, Liam, but we expect him to do a lot of his talking on the field this season.
Oh, he certainly saw that last season. I mean, he was one of the he was an absolute force in the Bulls back row, and then he suffered that untimely injury just at the business end of the URC, and obviously that took him out of Bok contention as well. I mean, he was part of the Bok camp.
Yeah, the alignment
camp.
camp.
In the conversation there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just as we're about to end off, I thought maybe something I'd throw in later. This is after we recorded the pod. Rassie Erasmus at the post-match press conference gave us a rather hilarious take of him having a bathroom emergency and stage fright. I won't say much more than that. Have a listen if you haven't already. But here's Rassie's hilarious story about what happened to him during the Cape Town test.
I don't know if this is appropriate, but our coach's box is up there, and I've got this medication that makes me must go to the toilet quite often. And as I ran into the coach's box, I thought, no, I'm not going to make this first half, I don't go to the toilet now. But the coach's box is right between the public, the toilet there, and it's a man's and a woman's toilet. And there was a lady that stood there, and the man's queue was long. And the lady said, no, I can go in. And there was a lady in the bathroom, but it was all dressed, everything fine. And I said, listen, I must go to the coach's book, I must. And she said, no, she'll turn around. And then I got stage fright. But that's the part, the people carried it. And then the one guy was like a police officer running me back to the coach's box. No, it's lovely what the crowd did, you know. You feel, even when it's not going well, they keep on singing. That's the difference maybe between the Cape Town crowds and some other crowds. They're always happy, even while you're losing. And that's nice. So, but our Alice Park was also amazing last week.
I think URC will get to. Obviously, it starts next week. South African derbies have been postponed for a week for the Currie Cup final, so we'll talk a bit next week about that as well. But while I'm going to be enjoying a very quiet week in some Currie Cup semi-finals, Liam, you off tasting some oysters and wine and having fires on over and looking over the ocean at the moment. I won't say I'm jealous, but I'm very jealous. Enjoy.
I'll try and do that. I have to say that my path hasn't crossed oysters yet, but there is still time. So I think my mission today, still for the remainder of today, will be to find a few oysters and find a bottle of white wine or even a rosé to wash that down with, Brendan, and I shall send you some pictures.
I'm sure you're going to make me insanely jealous there, but if this is your mission. If you choose to accept it, please go ahead and make sure you have extra 6 oysters for me as well.
I'll do that.
That's our show. We'll chat to you next week. Thanks, Liam, and safe travels.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. For the latest insights and rugby analysis each week, plus new episode alerts, please follow or subscribe to the series. Or find all episodes at jacarandafm.com or the Jackpot app.
That is world class.